Welcome back. Apparently, I'm doing something right because people are watching this. Let's start where they picked off, huh? For viewers who didn't watch the last video on this little channel, this is a read of Transported: A Wings of Fire story. This one we'll go over chapter 4, Familiar Faces. Daniel wandered the house in search of the mapping room. He needed to know the fastest way to Jade Mountain to get help with this prophecy. I think it's in here, Daniel thought, entering the room to find what he was looking for. And Baron drew on some scribbled paper. Crap. I didn't expect him to be in here. Let's try and leave quietly. Daniel took a few steps back before Baron spoke in a quiet voice. Leaving so soon? He turned his head to look at him. His face was a mix of expressions: curiosity, regret, and realization, just to name a few of them. However, Daniel saw that there was an extremely faint layer of fear and anxiety in his eyes. Yeah, I was thinking of heading to Jade Mountain to see what I can accomplish there, Daniel said quietly. I see, Baron stated. Well, in that case, you'll be needing this. Baron crouched down and removed a loose brick from the floor. It revealed a locked compartment, which Baron opened with the strangest yet most creative key Daniel had ever seen: a paintbrush. He slid it into the lock, and click was a map of Pyrea, except a lot more detailed than the one in the book. In fact, it was the most detailed and well-drawn map Daniel had ever seen. There were images of where every known oasis was, the Great Ice Wall, all the palaces, including the 3 Sea Kingdom palaces. It had the Animus-made tunnels from the rainforest to the desert, as well as even the old Night Kingdom, where Dark Stalker grew up. This is incredible, Daniel exclaimed, smiling. Baron, how in the world did you make this? Oh, I used to be a navigator for all 3 Sandwing sisters at one point in the war. Due to my connections with all the tribes, I was able to eventually make the most detailed map in all of Pyrea. This is the only kind of its map. This is the only map of its kind. And if it were gotten to the wrong claws, who knows what could happen. That's why before I give you this, I need you to promise me this one thing, Baron said with a more serious tone. Daniel nodded. Whatever you need, Baron. Promise me that if there is any chance that this map may fall into the wrong claws, destroy it. Daniel's eyes widened. But, Daniel started. No buts, Baron interrupted. Do you promise to destroy this map if you need to? He looked Daniel straight in the eyes. I promise. I promise that I will destroy this map if it falls into the wrong claws. Good. Now you best be on your way if you want to make it to Jade Mountain Academy by sunset. Even as a Skywing, it'll take a few hours. Will do. Daniel walked outside. Because of the sun's position, he guessed it was somewhere around 3 in the afternoon, which gave him 2 or 3 hours before sunset. Hey, Baron, Daniel started. Thanks for teaching me, Baron smiled. You're not done yet, and you have one last thing to learn before you leave. Daniel tilted his head. I do? Well, you can't be a Skywing if you don't know how to breathe fire. But don't worry, it's simple, Baron stated. To breathe fire, you just need to hold your breath for more than 2 seconds. By doing this, you will build up fire in your lungs. To release, you just blow out like you were blowing out a candle. Daniel did what Baron said, and it worked like a charm. The longer you hold it, the larger, the more powerful your fire will become. But be careful, as if you hold it for too long, it will be too powerful for you to handle, Baron said. Understood. Well, I should get going now. Don't want to arrive there at midnight, Daniel said. Once again, Baron, thanks for everything. It was my pleasure. Stay safe out there, Hurricane. Please, call me Daniel from now on. My scavenger name. Very well, Daniel. Stay safe, and know that you're always welcome here again. Thanks, Baron. I'll be sure to visit again someday. With that, Daniel took off into the sky. I'll see you later, he heard Baron shout from behind. I'll always keep an eye out for familiar faces after all. Will do, Daniel shouted back with a smile. Before long, he was well above the clouds, heading for JMA. I'll just call it JMA for now on, to hopefully meet some familiar faces. Baron said it may take a while to reach JMA, but as long as I follow the map and take occasional breaks in the oasis for water, I'll make it there by sunset. Daniel flew through the air. He realized how much more free he felt as a free bird. As free as a bird, Daniel laughed. I guess I took that saying to another level. Daniel took a fresh breath of air, doing a few tricks. As he flew, a thought came to his mind. Baron said that if you tucked your legs in, you were able to dive really fast. I should try that out. Daniel began to gain height, preparing for possibly the scariest and most thrilling moment of his life. Slowly but surely, he flew over the clouds until it was just nothing but a visible white blanket. It definitely took a while, though, maybe 30 minutes. It's time. Daniel gave one last flap of his wings before moving his body weight to his head. Quickly, he began to fall and pick up speed. Tucking in his legs, the wind began to whip across his face. He could feel himself slice through the wind, and soon he reached the white layer of clouds that was once below him. It was difficult to see, though. It was difficult to see through it, as the only thing visible was what was within about 10 meters in front of him. Unexpectedly, the top of the mountain came flying towards Daniel. Oh, crud! He thought as he swiftly dodged it. That was close. Daniel was now able to properly observe how fast he was truly growing, how fast he was truly going. As the mountainside was nothing but a gray and green blue. Damn, I'm moving fast. However, his thoughts were interrupted as turned out the one mountain was the least of his worries. As more mountain peaks began to appear out of the blue. It was flying too quickly to stop, so his only option was to dodge it. Daniel swerved to the left to avoid one mountain, and soon to his right to avoid another. Just then, a few more appeared simultaneously. There was no way to swerve out of the way or stop himself. Then something seemed to awaken inside Daniel, some sort of revelation. At least that's what it felt like. For some reason, flying now seemed like a piece of cake, even though he'd literally just learned a few moments how to even get off the ground. Thinking quickly, Daniel, or something else altogether, threw out his wings and slid through the mountain's small ravine. As the dull, cold walls of the inner mountaining blurred past him, he felt a shiver run through his spine like a train on a track. It was a lot colder inside, with only a few patches of warmth flowing from the flowing magma underneath the mountain's crust. Soon, a bright light began to shine through the cave's cracks. That's my way out, Daniel thought. Flying through an intensely tight gap, Daniel nearly scraped his wings a few times and just barely escaped certain death by doing a barrel roll through two jagged rocks. Soon, a bright light blinded him for a brief moment as he left the mountain, only to be met by a forest in front of him. You gotta be kidding. There's no time to fly up. I'll have to weave through it a bit. Daniel sped into the forest, dodging and waving his way through the trees. Now and then, his wings would hit some branches. However, due to his extreme velocity, they would just be sliced in half. Something was wrong. This sort of flying wasn't natural. And Daniel knew this, but was too full of adrenaline to figure it out at the moment. Daniel spotted an open patch in the leaves and took the opportunity to escape the greenery. However, upon his escape, he nearly flew straight into a dragon. Oh, shoot! Tilting his wings, he swerved away from the dragon, only to find himself flying at full speed towards a large group of dragons. With little time to think, and possibly an extremely bad accident in front of him, Daniel ditched all efforts to think logically and let his instincts take over. He flew under two dragons before doing 3 or so barrel rolls in a row to avoid 8 more. Shifting his body weight to fly upward, he just barely missed crashing into a mountain he didn't see. Gliding against the side of the mountain, Daniel shifted his weight once more to fall backwards towards land. As he approached land, he got ready to slow down. Daniel opened his wings at the last minute to catch as much air as possible and almost come to a complete stop. A huge gust of wind was forced from his wings as he landed on the soft, lush grass. Wow, that was something else entirely, Daniel thought aloud. There was a hint of confusion in his words as he struggled to comprehend how in TW, the hell, TW world, he just pulled that off. However, it was interrupted by a few voices nearby. Whoa! Did you see that? I didn't even think someone could fly that fast. I know, right? It was insane. Daniel looked up to see a crowd of about 28 to 30 dragons all staring at him. Although he understood why, as when he looked into the distance, he saw that the soft layer of clouds that covered the sky had been sliced in two by his incredible speed. Daniel's eyes widened in disbelief. He shook his head slowly. No, that's not possible. I'd have been flying at least after. I would have to be flying at least after the speed of sound for that to happen. Wait, what? I would have to be flying at least after the speed. Then I would have to be flying at least faster than the speed of sound for that to happen. Oh, another typo. Daniel looked down at his talons. Something wasn't right, and he knew it. There's no way he could just pull that off out of the blue, let alone even accomplish splitting the clouds. Suddenly, Daniel was stuck in his thoughts. Another dragon interrupted his thought process and snapped him back to reality. Snap back to reality. That was amazing, said a small pink rain wing, who bounded up to him. She was accompanied by a larger sandwing with a scar on his snout. Gotta admit, said the sandwing, your flying back there was impressive. Daniel looked around. Many dragons were whispering and taking cheeky glances at Daniel, while others just stood there. They too, along with Daniel himself, were speechless with what they had witnessed. Well, that's a new record, I guess, Daniel said in an attempt to ease his brain from the physical impossibility of what had just happened to him. Daniel stared back up at the parted clouds, which were now starting to form back into more natural shapes. I shouldn't be alive right now. What in the world happened? Daniel turned his attention back to the dragons who walked up to him. The Rainwing had a goofy smile, one as she rambled on about how amazing his flying was. However, on the other hand, the Sandwing was staring intensely, as if he was trying to read his mind. I haven't seen you around here before, the Sandwing said. What's your name? Name's Hurricane. Pleased to meet you. And the reason haven't seen me here. Another typo. And the reason you haven't seen me here before is because I'm new around here. I'm thinking of enrolling in JMA. Care to tell me where it is? Daniel said casually in an attempt to stop his mind from running wild. Suddenly, the Rainwing started to giggle, while the Sandwing gave a small smirk. You're already here, silly, the Rainwing said, just as Daniel looked around to see that he had indeed already made it. Daniel's thoughts started up again. But this makes no sense. I've been flying for an hour or so. I should have at least another hour of flying left to do. Even if I did fly fast enough, I'd be dead simply from the air resistance. It made no sense at all. Perhaps he had just forgotten or lost track of time. But either way, he had somehow arrived an hour early, despite the laws of physics screaming otherwise. Oh, I see now. Guess I was flying a bit too fast to notice, Daniel said, as his thoughts were once again pushed back to the back of his head. The other two dragons laughed for a bit before speaking again. Well, I guess we should give you a proper welcome, said the Sandwing. My name's Keebly. And this here's Kikajow, he said, pointing to the smaller dragon. Welcome to Jade Mountain Academy. That is the end of the chapter, except for the author's note at the very bottom. All right, this took way longer than expected. I'm writing this at 1:30 a.m. with 6% of battery left on my phone. So I hope getting this chapter out 10 hours early was worth the loss of sleep. It probably was, in parentheses. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this longer chapter. Once again, feel free to comment and vote for this, as it means the world to me, knowing people like this story. And it gives me the motivation to write more. But apart from that, make sure you stay safe. Have fun, and I'll hopefully see you somewhere within 42 hours. Adios. So, chapter 4. The protagonist, Daniel, has found his way to J Mountain Academy, realized he was an expert flyer, and nearly died, but he still made it. See you next time.